Welcome to the Money Made Human podcast. It celebrates at its heart the work of credit unions and their vital role in enriching our lives and communities. Brought to you by First Class Credit Union, each episode features insightful discussions revealing the meaningful impact that can be made through economic collaboration. Mostly, it's a collection of compassionate conversations about navigating life and the individual journeys we take. Hello, friends and members. Welcome to Money Made Human, a podcast by First Class Credit Union. And we're delighted today to be joined by a special guest, and it's Nick Money from Swoboda Research Centre.
Good afternoon, Gayle, and everyone at First Class.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. Just hitting the autumn rush.
I can't believe it's September already.
Yeah, and the leaves are falling and the rain's falling.
I know. Where did the year go? So, Nick, tell me, what is the Swoboda Research Centre?
So Swoboda is an organization's mission is to provide credit unions with the information and ideas and networks that they need to grow and flourish. And that might mean changing and transforming. And when we founded the organization a few years ago, we just felt there was a gap for credit unions. Universities don't have professors of credit unions providing reports. Big consultancies or KPMGs and Deloitte don't go around writing reports on the future of credit unions like they do with banks. And we just wanted to create a bit of information that credit unions could use on various topics, whatever topics we can find that are relevant to credit unions and their development, to help credit unions get the ideas they need, but also to bring them together in conferences. And we do a couple of conferences every year where they can meet other leaders and discuss the issues that they're facing at their credit unions. And we serve credit unions in Britain and Ireland, which works really well because we get this really diverse group of people coming to our events and bringing all sorts of ideas and perspectives.
And what's your hope from that, from bringing all of that together? What are you hoping to achieve in the long term?
Well, we want the credit union movements, the credit union in Britain to be much bigger and more influential than it is at the moment and affecting the lives in positive ways of many more people than it is able to at the moment. And so we're hoping that British credit unions will get bigger and stronger. And for colleagues in Ireland, those credit unions are really well embedded in their communities, have a lot of scale. So for them, it's about ensuring that they have a vision for their purpose in a modern world and that they can sustain that very important role they play in their communities. So for both, it's about strengthening credit unions, and we will know we've succeeded if credit unions get stronger.
I'd love to explore a bit more of that with you. I just wanted to ask, it's an unusual name for a research centre. What's the origin of that?
Well, so it was founded in 2017-ish by myself, Dr. Paul Jones, and a guy called Ralph Swoboda. And Ralph was a really influential credit unionist from the US. He had spent years as the chief executive of the Trade Association in the US. He'd worked for the World Council as a consultant around the world. And he had lots of brilliant ideas. And one of the things when the three of us were thinking about how we could work together to help credit unions a few years ago, he had been involved in setting up the Filene Research Institute, which is in the US, which does a similar sort of thing. And he suggested, well, perhaps we could do something similar in Europe. So that's what we sought to do. And we originally were the Centre for Community Finance Europe. And that was a bit of a mouthful. And even as an acronym, CFCFE was a bit of a mouthful. So we always thought at some point we're going to rationalize this. We're going to turn this into something short and simple. Then very sadly in 2021, Ralph died. And we felt that it would be a really important tribute to him to the organization after him, which is brilliant. So that's what we've done. But Swoboda doesn't trip off the tongue either, unless you're in Eastern Europe, where it's a really popular name. So in Poland and Czech Republic, people know what Swoboda is.
But it's a really lasting tribute to his work then?
Absolutely, absolutely, and we really, Paul and I definitely feel that, and one of the reasons that this isn't, our organisation is relatively small at the moment, but we intend to grow it so that it outlives us, and therefore is a sort of a legacy for Ralph in the movement in Britain and Ireland.
That's really lovely, and lovely that you've taken that on to, in his memory. I wonder what his family feel about that.
Well, his wife Cheryl comes to our conferences when she can. Actually, pretty much all of them, and she's really touched by that. She herself had a career in credit unions in the US, and is still involved through a business that Ralph was running, providing services to credit unions in Ireland. And so she comes, and she very much likes that. So that's great. And Ralph was based for many years in Ireland, so knew the Irish movement really well. But back in the 90s, he came to Britain, sponsored either by Waka or CUNA, I'm not sure which, to help the British movement try and work out how it could grow, because in the 90s the British movement was really small. And Ralph and Paul started working together then, and Ralph had a really big impact on the development of British credit unions in the 90s. So yeah, we think it's just very fitting that the organisation's named after him.
No, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Just talking of Ireland and the work that's done on credit unions there, we were recently lucky able to travel to the World Conference in Stockholm.
Mm.
And I think for us, we came back and this podcast and this refreshment of our brand was born because of that conference. And we saw in three separate countries or delegations some powerful attributes and values. We really admired Brazil and their energy and passion and numbers, you know, so many people there. We really admired I guess, the resilience of Ukraine, and it had come across quite powerfully that they'd lost some of their funding, and nevertheless, they came out with their flag, and it was just a really powerful, kind of moving statement from them. But the other country that inspired us was Ireland,
Mm.
and their compassion and kinship and friendship, and it just seemed like a real community ethos there, and I wondered, you were just talking about Swoboda and their relations with Ireland. Do you see that there? Do you see that community spirit there in terms of credit unions?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a real, Ireland is a country I'm still getting to know, but it's a country that is very much composed of small towns, very agricultural country, much more so than most of Europe. Certainly, much more than Britain, which is obviously very city orientated, kind of culturally at least, and numbers as well. And where British credit unions tend to be located is in big urban areas. But Ireland's full of small towns, and many of those small towns have their own credit union, and people are very loyal to that credit union. And the credit union, they sort of talk about the pillars of the community being the church, the GAA club, the hurling club, and the credit union, and often the sponsor of the GAA will be the credit union, um, and it will have the probably the only bank branch left on the high street is the credit union branch. In fact, it'll be a prominent building. So the visibility and the role of the credit union in the community is really loud and proud, um, and the Irish credit unions fight really hard to retain that role in the community. And you can see, if you look on LinkedIn, you see lots and lots of Irish credit unions at the National Ploughing Championships. That's not happening in Britain, in England or Scotland or Wales, but that's reflective of these agricultural communities. But also in the cities, there are a number of really big credit unions in Dublin and Cork, Limerick and Galway. Um, so the credit unions just are, it's a different context from how it is in Britain, but the credit unions are really keen to retain that community connection, even as there's a lot of consolidation in Ireland, a lot of credit unions emerging at the moment. They're still really keen to keep the community connection, and there's a lot of debate around what that really looks like. And the Irish credit union movement's currently going through a process of coming up with a 5-year strategy for its development. And I think as part of that strategy, they're going to have to work out what their vision is for the role of the credit unions in sort of as we come into the 2030s.
Mhm. How do we do that? How do we grow the credit union sector, and how do we tell our population the importance of credit unions, and why we're really useful? Well, how do we do that? And it's $1 million question, but what can we do?
I think, yeah, and if I knew the answer, I'd be worth $1 million, wouldn't, and that would be great, wouldn't it? But I have a discussion in my mind very often at the moment. From when I used to work at Co-operative Bank, and one of my last roles, I was in charge of the business case for a very, very large technology project, which was a core system replacement for the bank. And and I just remember a conversation between, and I'd been part of the team that built the strategy and said, we really need new technology. Our technology is poor. We can't deliver the services and products and experience that we want to our customers. But this technology project was going to be very expensive, take a long time, and be very risky. And that's very familiar to credit unions as well, who've looked at this. And I remember the discussion between myself and a guy, the director of marketing and sales, and he said, look, you should give me all that money. And I will tell the world about the Co-operative Bank, because the Co-operative Bank was a very small player in the banking market, even though it had a great offer. And he said, the technology, yeah, I know we need to fix the technology. He said, but really what we need to do is tell everybody about the fact that we're here and we're great. And I think that's a debate that's still in my head, is still unresolved for me around what are credit unions. We do, as we move into an era of AI, of challenges to cybersecurity and fraud, and um, multi-channel experiences with apps and phones, and also wanted to work out where the personal touch stays in. Technology is key to the next 10 years for credit unions. But if everything's about what we can do, but still nobody knows about it,
Yeah.
then we're stuck. But if at the same time, if we go out to tell everybody about us, and then they encounter us, and actually we're a bit disappointing in some ways, and I think some people would be disappointed with us,
Mhm.
then that won't work either. Hey, we have to try and work these things together, I think, which is about how can we shout really loudly whilst making the experience that we give to our members live up to the values that we're exhibiting.
We came back from the World Conference and really thought about that human touch that is kind of vital just now. We're connected online. We have all these social media platforms, but there's also a disconnect. And I think our little mission here from our headquarters in Glasgow is we want every single member to feel like they're important and that they're being treated as a human. Even if when technology is advancing round about that, we want them to feel important and valued. So we're trying to link that in as well. I don't know what your thoughts are around Money Made Human. You have the most appropriate name in the world for it, Nick.
Well,
Of
yeah,
course.
Harrison. I was very delighted that the credit union where I spent 20 years on the board, which was the Co-op Credit Union, is now rebranded as the Money Co-op. So, which I feel is a fitting tribute, but they may not have done that intentionally, but I'm sure it was underlying. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a part of our. If we're to make a difference, then that personal connection is where we can make a difference. We're unlikely for the foreseeable future to be groundbreaking in terms of new products or services because of our capacity, and both in terms of cash and people. Um, and we're unlikely, because of those constraints as well, we're unlikely to, there are various things it's hard for us to be the winners, the best at.
Mhm.
But what we can be the best at, because other financial service providers have increasingly following a different route, is to be the people. So I think Money Made Human is a great idea, and I think another aspect of it that you may well already have thought of is how people think about money, and they think it's very abstract, and actually it can be a part of, it's a part of our daily lives, and we need not be scared of it. But I think that personal connection is really important, but it is really hard because at the same time people want to be able to do stuff at their convenience, and so they want us when they want us. which isn't necessarily when we're about, or how do we predict when that is, and what does that look like? So working all of that out, I think that's a key task for the next few years.
Oh, for sure, it's a balance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
For people listening to this that might not know what a credit union is or why it's important, what's Swoboda's view on why credit unions are important for society and for Great Britain? Why are they important to Swoboda and for the rest of us?
Well, it's interesting that that came up yesterday. We had an event in London to share with people from outside the credit union sector. Actually, project where we've launched to develop a vision for the British credit union movement in 10 years' time, and we had some really interesting panelists talking about different aspects of financial inclusion. But we were talking afterwards about financial inclusion being a part of, well, not everything about what a credit union is. So what I think we feel at credit unions um, are so important because their financial services is really important to everybody's lives. Everybody needs financial services
Mhm.
in some form or shape or form, whether that's savings or loans or moving money around or mortgages or all those other insurance, all those other things. And having organizations whose mission is the financial well-being of the people who they work with and the communities that they are based in is just so important when there's lots of the very big actors in Britain, at least, tend to be organizations who aren't necessarily bad actors, but that's not their mission. Their mission is to generate appropriate returns for their owners. Um, they're privately owned, and those owners may not even be based in the communities they're serving. So we think that there's the financial inclusion aspect where credit unions will work with people who mainstream providers won't, and will give a second chance to people and will look to see the person behind the numbers. So that's really important. But we think that credit unions should be for everybody.
For
Why not? For everybody.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not just about inclusion. I have a lot of choice. I'm very fortunate. I have choice in the marketplace, but I choose to go to a credit union because for me, they're a cooperative option. I think they're not, if I'm working with my credit union, then my credit union is supporting the community I live in.
Mhm.
And I like the principle of, you know, being bound in with other people on this. And then there's also the democratic aspect to this as well, so that people actually have it's not just for them, but by them, and they can be engaged in this, and they own it, not in a simple how much money am I going to get out of this way, but in a this is my asset that I own with other people in the community. So there's lots of reasons I think why credit unions are a really important alternative to mainstream banks.
And if you were saying to someone that doesn't have a credit union account or membership just now, what would be your what would be your top three reasons for choosing us as a sector? Why should they come to us? You know.
Well, I think the first thing is they've got to I think many credit unions, this doesn't necessarily go for all, but I think most credit unions now have got a saving or a loan product that's good for you.
Mhm.
And that's got to be the starting point. This isn't charity from a member of the public coming to the credit union to say, you're not very good, are you? But I'll give you some money.
Mhm.
Actually, credit unions have got savings products which are helpful to people, and they've got loan products that are helpful to people. And those loan products often come with a connection to the savings to make the whole thing beneficial. And some credit unions are offering other services on top of that, but that's the core offer from a credit union. So they've got a saving, they can help you save, and they can give you an affordable and appropriate loan for your needs. So that's the first thing. But then they also, as I say, they're actors in your community and they're owned by your community, and you can participate in governance of those organizations. You have a stake in them, and they want to be there in 20 30 years time. They're not looking to get profitable and then sell out to somebody who might want to buy them and sort of and take them off in a different direction. They're there. That's their reason, is to be there for the community. So I think it's a those are the reasons why you go, because they've got a great product and service, but also because they're a community asset.
Mhm. And there's that place for we can help each other.
Yeah.
There's still that platform to help each other, which which is nice to have in 2025. It's
Absolutely. As you say, with Money Made Human, there's somebody to talk to. If you've got
yeah.
if you've got a problem, we want to know. You're not going to be on hold for 2 hours, and we want to sort things out for you. And making connections as well. And actually, I think this is something that credit unions, I think it's an opportunity for credit unions, which is to create community as well as be a part of it.
Mhm.
So, like, your members are spread around the country.
That's right.
Um, but one thing they have in common is that they're all members of First Class Credit Union,
Mhm.
and that's an opportunity to build a sense of community there, as well as in the location where they are or in the employer group that they're in.
Last Christmas, we did a campaign online called Workplace Heroes, and we went to our membership, which is predominantly an industrial membership, and we went to them and said, nominate someone that you think's doing a great job.
Mhm.
And it's one of the highest rated pieces of work we've done on social media, and yet it was in its heart about helping others. So, it's we want to do much more of that and recognise our members and all the great things they do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great, because I do think that you mentioned before, so much of life is lived online now, and that has a fragmenting effect in terms of social connection. But it can be also have some positives. There's a way in which we can bring people together who wouldn't otherwise be connected.
Mhm,
But we have to do the initiatives that you're talking about there. We have to make that. It's not enough for somebody just to know that they're a member of the credit union. We need to create that feeling of connection and with other people.
mhm. The UK government in their manifesto have set out that they want to see growth in the mutual sector. Is that doable? How 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 do we support that as credit unions as well?
So that's yeah, and it was great to see that in the manifesto. And I think it's fair to say there's not a lot of thinking behind it. To be dismissive of it, but I think it's a grand aspiration, but there isn't a plan that the government's now rolling out. And in fact, if you push the government a bit on what does doubling the size of the mutual sector look like, they couldn't really tell you. But nevertheless, I think it's not. There's no point in getting hung up on the detail of the aspiration.
Mhm,
We all have a sense of, let's make this thing much more visible and impactful in British society and the economy. So I'm all up for that. We hope with credit unions, we've got a project, as I mentioned, to develop a vision for 2035. And that the sort of target we've set ourselves is come up with a plan, working with credit unions, come up with a vision and a plan to achieve that vision that involves the movement being twice as big in 10 years' time. Um, and we will kind of work out what that looks like. It might be twice as many members. What I want it to be is twice as much impact. That's what I want us to think
mhm,
about, is our impact. And that means we need to work out what our impact is now. And so we'll be doing some work to help credit unions understand what impact they have on their communities, to try and put some potentially some numbers around that, so that we can say, right, how would we be twice as impactful in 10 years' time? And I think there's a lot of work going on across the co-op sector to try and work this out.
mhm,
Um, and I don't know whether that it's going to require I don't know whether it needs the government. I think credit unions could do an awful lot without the government.
mhm,
You don't, I mean, government may be able to help. There may be other funders that can help, but actually credit unions have it within them to do an awful lot more.
mhm. We've been talking locally about some of the work we do with our communities. And when you multiply it all up, when you multiply what every credit union is doing in their community, it's really impactful and quite powerful, that in terms of what we bring to society.
Absolutely. And we did do some work a few years ago, which we unfortunately never, we also always seem to be 5% away from finishing on getting a method for credit unions to do that measurement of impact. Because I think one of the things credit unions have done very well for a long time is talk about the individual stories about how this lady and her family were really helped, and about how this young man got his debt got straightened out, and how this person got to go to college because. And we were really good at telling those individual stories, which are really important because they are money made human. They're made into stories that we can all relate to. But actually, we also need to have alongside that is actually, well, how many people came out of problem debt, or how many people now feel more confident in their finances than they did a year ago because of the intervention of the credit union, and trying to understand that kind of impact. I think it'd be brilliant if wouldn't it be great if we could do that across Britain? We'd show such an amazing impact, I think.
And bring that data together.
Yeah.
Be really
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is, Nick, tell me more about your journey. Because what I can sense from everything you've said so far is you've got immense passion and care for this sector. It's not just a job. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it really
Uh, you know,
it is, but I think I don't know, it's an accident. I would say that where me be doing what I'm doing now is an accident. I wouldn't never have planned it. I'm not great at planning, career planning. But I've always been very interested in political and social change, and when I was in the early years of my career, I was very interested in organizational purpose. Why do organizations exist? What are they trying to achieve? And I joined Co-operative Bank in the mid-90s because they position themselves as the ethical bank, and I was quite interested by this idea that this quite dull utility institution, a bank, might have this whole purpose thing that was beyond just sort of moving money around and making profit. Um, and while at the bank, also got very interested in sort of strategy and how. So okay, so we've got this mission. How are we going to get there? And about while I was at the bank, I actually joined the board of credit union that had been created for the staff of the bank and the co-op group in Manchester. And so that's how I started to get familiar with credit unions. But I was at the bank for a good many more years. Um, and then when I left the bank because I kind of ran out of road with where I was. Sometimes everything's a season, and there was the season to finish for me. And I spent about better part of 10 years doing consultancy work with not-for-profit organizations because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go. I was actually at that time trying to get away from banking, still on the board of the credit union, but I thought, I don't really want to do this banking thing. And I worked for a lot of fantastic organizations and charities and co-ops. Um, and I started to finish up, but I kept coming back to credit unions because actually I really knew quite a lot about savings and loans because of the work I've been doing in a bank.
Mhm.
And as I got many years, I think I was on the board of the credit union, but I wasn't really in contact with anyone outside our credit union. I didn't really have those personal connections that you get when you start to get out of your own credit union and you meet other credit unions, you go to conferences, you go to events, and you suddenly see the connections that people have and the common purpose that people have. And it's so different from going to a banking conference when you go to a credit union conference. I was in Stockholm that year
Mhm.
in the summer, and I actually found it quite the flag ceremony. I mean, and it's all a bit of a cliche, but I found it quite moving. That there's all
It
these
was.
from around the world,
Mhm.
and there is so much that's in common in the way these organizations, what they're trying to achieve. Quite a lot of diversity in how they're trying to achieve it, but so much common ground. And I found I have for the years now, the last better part of 10 years that I've been focused on credit unions. I just find that inspiring, continue to find it inspiring.
Mhm. Oh, no, it was for sure. There was just something powerful about the flag ceremony and the fact that we were all in the room with really the same purpose.
Yeah.
We might have different views and ways of doing it, but it was about serving our members, I think, at its heart.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah. And I just, I mean, I think it's partly a special thing about cooperatives. I think a
Mhm.
lot of cooperative sectors have something a bit similar, but I also think credit unions have got something special even above that. I'm not sure if you went to a dairy farmer cooperative conference, it would be the same as a credit union conference. And maybe I'm biased, but I do think that there's something special about the credit union movement. And you see it with people who, in my time in credit unions, I've seen other people come new to credit unions and they come to it with a sort of with goodwill and interest, and then they sort of realize that they almost change gear in terms of their passion for this thing when they realize they're part of something a lot bigger.
It was truly moving. We were very, very lucky that one of our colleagues here carried the British flag in. So it was great to kind of feel connected to it in that way.
Yeah.
Nick, when you were talking about your journey with your career, what what informed your values though? You know, I get that you've been in banking and you know you were talking about strategy and the credit union sector, but what informed you to be the way you are?
Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
know.
to be the human you are?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose
Did that
it's
come from your career?
no, I don't think so. I think what I've done in my career, I hope, has lined up with my values. I've always wanted to line up my values with what I do, and I've had uh, the sort of a combination of good fortune and decision making to ensure so that I don't express my values sort of outside the workplace. It's not sort of I do work. We all have to do jobs, and not everyone has the opportunity to do a job that is meaningful to them.
Mhm,
But I've have had some choice over what I do with my life, and I wanted to do the work that I think expresses my values in some way. And so, you know, a lot of my values could be summed up in cooperation,
mhm,
and so, you know, seeking social justice. And this is, you know, I suppose being a human rights lawyer might have been another way of achieving that kind of thing, but I couldn't. I had no way I was going to spend 2 years studying law to do that. So this is the way I wound up, and I wound up expressing my values in my work life, and you know, I feel completely comfortable that this is a sector in which I can work and feel entirely confident that we are doing the right thing, which is sort of what I've tried to do, really.
and embrace those values, you get to kind of live them every day in a way,
Yeah.
don't you?
Absolutely, which is you know, I appreciate it's not a luxury everyone
Mhm,
luxury might be the wrong word, but it's not an opportunity everyone has.
mhm,
You know, some people have to there are a range of jobs where the work itself is not as values. What I love about my work is we can all bring our values to the way we do our work and how we interact with other people. We
mhm.
can and all should be doing that, and that's and great for people who can. But one of the wonderful things about being in credit unions is that the work that you are doing is values led work.
Sure. No, absolutely. And is there any special humans along the way that have inspired you or changed you that's developed your own skill set or values?
Well, I've had some when it went in the days went before I was effectively sort of working for myself. I had some great managers back at Co-operative Bank, some really good people, and one in particular was a particularly smart guy, but also a really human person, and had a very big picture view of how things could work, and I always admired that. But I suppose more in terms of a credit union and contemporary context, I mean, my colleagues Paul and Ralph have been are just tremendous. And then Paul James is, you know, it's extraordinary the influence he's had on the British credit union movement over 30 years through the work he's done. And he's not just all the research he's done, but he's been a volunteer from credit unions that were when there were 100 people credit unions. He's been one of the volunteers through to being on the boards of much larger community credit unions now. So and almost never have a conversation with Paul where I don't learn something new. Um, Ralph was a real larger than life character who was physically a big guy and you know, conformed to some American stereotypes from a European perspective. But that was good fun, and he could send himself up. But he has just had a tremendous store of knowledge about credit unions and a passion for them, um, and a really sharp mind as well. There's somebody outside the credit union world who I think is really, I know who I saw yesterday, which was lovely because I haven't seen him for a while, is Ed Mayo. Ed Mayo used to be the chief exec at Co-ops UK, which is the trade body for credit for co-ops in Britain.
Okay.
And prior to that, he was a founder of the New Economics Founder, a co-founder of the New Economics Foundation, which is a sort of progressive think tank based in London, does a lot of work about economy and society. He's currently chief exec of a charity based in London, which tries to put volunteers into charities around, facilitate volunteering around the country. And Ed is just a really, really lovely guy as well. And I think what all these people have in common is they're lovely people, um, doing great stuff, who know a load of stuff and have always got something to teach you. which is I've just always found inspiring.
Thank you for sharing that. We're really keen to hear these stories because we want our members to know they're dealing with great people. And I think it is a bit of a gap in the whole sector in that we're not very good at storytelling about ourselves,
Yeah.
our experiences, our skills, and letting our members know who they're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's really important. People want to transact with good people,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I had a it was into I had a conversation with a friend once who said he had a boss who said, "You can't do good business with bad people." And I suppose
For
flipping that
sure.
around, that we do good business. We have good to have good people, but it's also important our members and the public generally understand that the great people that they could be dealing with. Yeah, and telling stories is so important to how people communicate and understand that. Yeah, I'm sure you're right, and I'm sure that's something that you know, probably Paul and I will have a sort of bit of an academic mindset, perhaps. We're quite data orientated in some ways. And maybe that's something we could think about for Swoboda as well. But to be honest, working with chief executives like yourself, that is this is why this job is great because I get to speak with so many leaders of credit unions who, are trying to make change in their communities, make change for the better of their members. And that's it's just a brilliant every day, really.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. We care. We do. We really care about our members and what we're trying to do. What about going forward? What what can we do to help Swoboda? How do we encourage more members to join us? What's the immediate plans for the future?
Well, so we've got a lot of things going on at the moment, and I think we probably at Swoboda will have to make some choices as to whether we can do all the things I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm a big ideas generator. I'm not such a good completer finisher, so that's a recipe for disaster. Um, but we've got a lot of research going on, and I suppose what I would like is to have feedback from credit unions as to whether they like this research. Is it relevant to them? Could it be different? Could it be better? What other subjects should we be looking at? Um, I'd like more credit unions to join. We have about 60 credit unions that subscribe to Swoboda, and it's a key source of income for us is subscriptions. So everyone who joins, we're a not-profit organization. It will go back into serving the credit unions who are working with us. That's either research or it could be we do development work with chief executives, with chairs, and I'm looking subject to getting some feedback from people as to whether we should do some development work with sort of next generation CEO people who aren't there yet, but need some support in terms of their development so they're ready when the opportunity comes. Um, so really for us, it's just about continuing to grow. But actually, we should be measuring our impact. That's something I'm keen that we should work out. What does it do? Because if I wrote a report for you on how to improve your lending, how would I know whether that had made any difference at all to you and or to any other credit union? So we're not really we haven't yet got our own way of measuring our own impact, but that's something I'd like to do. And then potentially, there may be other parts of the world we could support as well where there
Mhm.
isn't research going on.
Mhm. And for what it's worth, the reason we wanted to be involved with you is we tried really hard to deliver great service to our members every day, and we want to have support and a network that enables us to do that and
Mm.
to build our ideas and, have that circle of good people around us. So that's really valuable to us and onwards for our own members. And
Like, yeah.
what about for you personally? What are you hoping to achieve in the next little while? Have you got anything that you're hoping to tick off and, achieve?
Well, so I'm doing a PhD on
Wow.
credit unions, looking at the business model of Irish credit unions. So
Nope.
yeah. So to tick off some progress on that would be really good.
Okay.
To try and bring a little bit of order to the chaos of the as I say, I generate a lot of ideas, which actually it's great and fun, and it's wonderful to have the opportunity to do that and to have the chance to implement them. But um, it does finish up with a lot of plates spinning on poles that I'm racing around trying to keep them all going, and actually I probably need to be a little bit more systematic and planned get a bit more balance back into my life. But yeah, I mean, what I want to do is make Swoboda as sustainable, like just like the credit unions are sustainable, and so that Swoboda could survive life without me and Paul. That's my main objective.
I think you said something really important earlier about credit unions are for all,
Yeah.
not just for a segment of the population. And I hope that we can work with you in the future to develop that thinking. And we embrace all of our members regardless of what they do, as long as they qualify for our common bond. We are happy to have them as part of our credit union family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had a former chief executive of a credit union wrote a paper for us a couple of years ago, and he talked about credit unions representing the bottom 80%. And I really like that, the credit unions are serving this
Yeah.
big swathe of the population, middle, low and moderate income people, who've got financial service needs, and we can give them a cooperative and community-based um, solution to that that's primarily aimed at their well-being and not profit making. So I think it's a fantastic vision. We would love to work with First Class and as many other credit unions as possible.
Oh, definitely. I'm thinking about all the busy mums out there who are saving for school uniforms, who are saving for Christmas. A credit union's just the perfect place to do that,
Yeah, absolutely.
for sure.
Or buying a car or redoing the kitchen, all those simple things
Yes.
that everyone does in their lives.
We can help. We can help for sure. So you're not leaving now, because part of our podcast, at the end of it, our team come up with some questions for you. So I have a selection. I don't know what the questions are, but if you could give me a number between 1 and 6.
3.
Number 3. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, good. That's a good start.
How should credit unions adapt to the changing needs of members in the new digital world?
Um, well, the how I'm the research guy, right? So you guys know the how, but what I would say is the credit union should, and I think some credit unions are a bit squeamish about that, and they're sort of wanting to um there's a sort of they feel that to move to digital is to lose your credit union ethos,
Mhm.
and the credit union ethos is not to do with digital, non-digital, branches, paper. It's not to do with all those bits. It's to do with why you're doing stuff and the connection you're making with people. And if you could do it, make the right connections with people entirely digitally, fine. I mean, I think we're not quite there yet. So the how is, I think the important thing is that credit unions do try and engage with digital, and they
Mhm.
do accept that people like the digital options that other providers are offering to them. So that we need to give we need to give our members those kinds of options as well, but with the special personal touch, whatever that looks like in a digital world,
Like money moves human?
for example.
It's totally. Right, give me another number.
5.
That's quite a good question, actually. What are the myths about credit unions you wish more people understood, or debunking those myths?
Yeah, I suppose the obvious one is the poor man's bank tag,
Yep. We're
which
not.
we're not, because as we just said, we're for everybody.
Yep.
Um, I think there's another myth that for some people that they're still run out of the church hall,
Mhm.
and actually lots of credit unions now are reasonably substantial organizations with fully professional staff, and they're obviously all credit unions are regulated. So that's another myth. And I suppose I wish there were more myths, but I'm not sure. I can't think of any more because I know that the big challenge is the one you opened up with, which is that not enough people know about credit unions. So if there were myths, well, at least people would know about us.
Yeah. We've got to tell more people.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. We've got number 1, 2, 4, and I think 6.
Well, I've got to go for number one then.
Number 1. not a credit union related question. Well,
Okay.
hopefully it's not. What makes you laugh the most?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I probably have to say my partner, but
Okay.
I can't say that she's not here at the moment, so I can say it because she thinks she's really funny.
Okay.
I have to spend a lot of time telling her she's not as funny as she thinks she is, but unfortunately, she actually is quite funny.
It's quite funny.
Mm,
Brilliant.
yeah, quite annoying.
That's good. I, I think she'll enjoy the compliment when she finds out.
Yeah.
Listen, it was such a pleasure to speak to you today, Nick. Thank you for joining Money Made Human. And we look forward to working with Swoboda in the future. And we wish you all the best of luck as with your PhD, of course, but with all the work you do for credit unions to help them flourish. We appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you, Gail, and all the best to First Class Credit Union and its Money Made Human message, and for all the good work that you and the team do.
We appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Money Made Human podcast. We're grateful to spend time with you and hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join a credit union, choose us. With love, until the next time, First Class Credit Union.